My name is Jeff Morgan. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I want to speak just for a few moments about this idea that I've had floating around for a while. It's called the man's house. The man's house would be a place that if men are going through divorce or something like that they'd be able to have a place to go to, have some respite, have a few months where they would be able to just immediately go to a place and be able to have a place to stay, to maybe get some training in what's going on, a place that they would have maybe 3 to 6 months just to be able to sit back and be quiet. And I think part of this came about for a few reasons. Number one, I have a house, it's a decent house, love the house actually, but we can't live down here because of the medical needs of my stepson. And so because of that, we're not down here, but I've had this house. I've never wanted to sell it. I've wanted to be able to keep it and keep running it out and have it as a place that possibly in the future I could sell as part of, either for retirement purposes or to help my grandchildren as they go through school, either private schools or college or something like that. So I do have this house down here. But the second thing is I remember going through divorce myself. It was something that was unexpected to me, something that was a most miserable part of my life when you have a lawsuit filed against you for divorce. And it seemed like for me at the time that my wife was going through some crazy, strange stuff. And I'm trying to stop the divorce. I want to keep the family intact. But then she had her own family involved with this, and a lot of things took place there. A lot of lying took place, a lot of other things took place. I don't want to go into those details. But during that time, you're in a position where like, what do you do? I have no idea what to do. I'd never gone through this. Nobody taught me anything about how to prepare for divorce. I was hoping to see my marriage reconciled. People were not very helpful as far as that was concerned. So a guy goes through this, gets hit with a lawsuit, and in many cases, they get hit with the silver bullet. All of a sudden they're being supposedly an abusive father or somebody who may pose a danger to the mother. All the mother has to say, or the ex-wife has to say, or the wife has to say, is, "Oh, I feel threatened. I feel afraid." And based on that alone, just her feeling of fear, whether it's genuine or not, a father can be kicked out of his home, can be basically forced to the streets, just have all of these things brought against him, and also almost be facing criminal charges. Protective orders in Texas are criminal charges. All of a sudden, a father who's been involved in his kids' lives and been active in his kids' lives, or been in this marriage for maybe, in my case, almost 25 years, about 25 years, all of a sudden he's being kicked out, and his whole world is being turned upside down. So when it happened to me, I'm like, what do I do at this point? Where do I go? I looked at some apartments. They were ranging anywhere from, $895 up to $1,500 or something. And it made no sense to me that I should have to move. But my ex-wife was adamant, and she was claiming all sorts of things, claiming that she was going to die from cancer and everything else if I were around. It was just something that completely strange. And during the time, again, I'm facing this stuff and I'm not sure what to do. You make the best you can of it. But I've thought that in light of the fact that a lot of times that when men go through divorce, sometimes it's unexpected. A lot of times it's unexpected. Sometimes there are other allegations brought against them. Where can a guy go to? So I've got this house down here, 5 bedrooms, 4 baths. It's a place that I thought, is it possible that I could open up the house and make it some type of a man's house for people going through divorce in particular? Not for them to have a whole lifestyle down here, but for them to have, say, between 3 and 6 months just down here, to have a place to land solidly, to have a place that they can gather themselves, get some composure about them, possibly even work to save their marriage. Because many marriages that take place, many divorces that take place actually don't need to be divorced. There are things that if they're in place, if you have churches involved, if you have other people involved, you could save marriages. I'm more for the saving of marriages, not for the good divorce. I don't believe that there is such a thing as a good divorce. I think that all divorces suck, especially if children are involved. I think they create trauma. I think that if you're a Christian, you are disobeying God. There are reasons for divorce at times, but very seldom are there legitimate reasons in the vast majority of instances. We have in Texas called the no-fault divorce for any reason, for no reason. You can make up a reason. You can commit perjury and get a reason. Divorce on demand, divorce in which there is no defense. And again, the person who is on the receiving end of that, his or her life can be turned upside down. He or she can lose daily access to family, and it's amazing the other stuff that takes place from there. So anyway, like I said, I've had this house. Last year I was renting it to somebody. For 4 of the last 5 years, I was renting it to somebody who was on Section 8 housing. What I did not know at the time was Section 8 housing is largely for single women. I thought it was an income thing more than anything else, but I found out afterwards that it's largely for single women to have a voucher from the city to be able to get them a place to live. So I had somebody who was renting here. There was a voucher that the city paid to help guarantee that she would be able to make the rent and stuff like that. And that was in place, and there were other things that went on with that. I'm not going to go into that. That's a whole nother video topic I could talk about. Section 8 is it is what it is. I know over the last year I've spent over $40,000 trying to get the house back in shape from when she left in last August. A lot of damage was left. Not everything was her fault, but there were a lot of things that took place here. So in the midst of fixing up the house and in the time of not having anybody here, was thinking, what can I do for the future? I want to rent-proof the house so that I do not have to face this again with the next renter. It was during that time that I found that Section 8 was largely for single mothers. And I thought, what would happen if there's a place like this for fathers? A place that fathers could go, either fathers going through divorce, not fathers initiating divorce, fathers that are going through divorce and want to see their marriage saved. Is there something that I could possibly offer? And I live in a place, my house is in a place where there is no HOA, so there are no HOA restrictions on this. There's a couple of things that have to go to city council about and change. But I floated this idea, and some people were very, very positive toward it. One lady in particular was able to arrange appointments with me to meet an attorney and also a CPA who work with nonprofits in Texas, and they did some analysis. They posed some very good questions to me. They gave me their analysis about what I could do, how I could go about doing this. And this lady I thought might be interested in it, and she is interested in it, but she's just so busy right now. She's in one nonprofit. I don't think she has the time for another nonprofit right now. So at this point in time, I have the house here, and I said, okay, what do I do? I could turn around and put it on the market and rent it to a family, but still in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what about the idea, can we make a man's house? And if we make a man's house where you have a place that men can go to, again, it's not a long-term thing, it's 3 to 6 months more than likely, that they could just have a place to come to and basically get some bearings about themselves. I remember when I was going through divorce, I had a couple of friends that I spoke to a lot. My own mom and my stepdad back in Pennsylvania. I was on the phone with them probably almost every single day. A couple of people here. A lot of people get tired of talking to you, right? They're like, good night, just deal with it yourself. But I had a couple of people, another lady who was going through divorce that was telling her some of the things I was going through. We had both worked on a presidential campaign together, and basically we were able to give each other some advice. My divorce was culminated before hers. I tried to give her some of the pitfalls that I went through so that she wouldn't do them. Anyway, we became very good friends, and we both decided that we were going to change laws in the state of Texas. Once again, no-fault divorce, you cannot stop a no-fault divorce. Her divorce is a little bit different. Her husband filed for divorce against her. Her husband, in my opinion, was a real jerk and did not deserve the deal that he got. You'll find in divorce court, family court, that there's always going to be injustice that takes place, almost always. There's somebody who's filing for divorce and he thinks or she thinks that she deserves this or he deserves that. And there's always the other person, the person who wants to play by the rules, who wants to do things right, and that person gets taken advantage of. For me, when I was going through divorce, I took the attitude that it's better to be sinned against than to sin against someone else. And I made concessions for things. I did not want to see bad things happen to my ex-wife. I certainly did not want to see bad things happen to my kids. And I found out afterwards that my former in-laws were involved in this whole thing. It just became an absolute mess. People lying and covering up for people. Went to the church. The church was basically useless. I hate to say this, but the church did almost nothing. There were some people I heard that were kind of against it and everything else, but the church was pretty much useless as far as helping a person through divorce, stopping divorce, telling the person who was filing for divorce, listen, you're committing sin. You should not be doing this. The church should take a stronger stand against divorce than what it does. But again, I'm talking about my perspective going through this then. What do? I got an apartment in town, moved things, I had stuff in storage. It was a pretty rough time. And I thought, again, we have all of these places for women to go to, and we'll always have the mentality that women are the victims and never the victimizers. Sometimes women are very much victimizers and men are the victims. In fact, I found out more and more from what I've seen that often it is the men that are victims and not necessarily the victimizers. And our laws are set up basically to punish men, to make sure that men somehow have to pay for the sins of their wife in many instances. So the idea about having this man's house was to have a place, again, that I could have up to 4 to 5 people here, but they'd have a place where they'd have individual bedrooms, but there'd also be a collective area here, that we would have a place that would be like the library, that we could have legal forms there. I've talked with people from throughout the country. One of the men from Pennsylvania, who's also an attorney, he's been an attorney for almost 30 years. He actually developed a course for women actually too, going through family law, saying here are the things that you can do to reduce the expenses. One of the things that will happen in family law is that attorneys they often will pretend that they're your friends and your ally. And make no mistake about it, there may be some that are that way, but they charge an arm and a leg, and they will take your money. They want the first thing, they want to know, what does your balance sheet look like? How much do you make? In other words, how much can we enrich ourselves at your expense? Claiming that we're fighting for you. So anyway, this guy from Philadelphia has put together a whole course. It costs about $500-600, but it's basically teaching people how to fight back in family court, what to do, how to be your own best advocate, so that if you do get an attorney, you don't have to spend $600 an hour for who knows how many hours, but you can do a lot of the work yourself, and then you can basically do like a cafeteria type approach for an attorney. I need an attorney for this, I need an attorney for that. And you tell him, because when you hire an attorney, he's your employee in that sense. And too often attorneys will come in, they will take your money, they will tell you, well, you have to do this, you have to do that. The rules somehow get reversed, and then when it comes down to trial, they're going to say, well, you know what, you don't have enough money to pay us. We're going to drop you. Unless you pay us more money, we cannot represent you. And again, men and women, I've seen it again and again and again. And sometimes it comes to the tunes of not just tens of thousands, but hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the idea here was to have a place that you have guys that could come in. They need people to talk to. And often people that are going through this stuff, they're willing to talk, they're willing to listen. When you're going through it on your own, you have nobody to talk to. You always feel like you're a burden to somebody. But what if you had a group of 3 or 4 guys that you could talk with? And not to say, you know what, complain about this, complain about that, but how do you respond to things? How do you be a good father? How do you go forward with this? How do you, if at all possible, bring some type of reconciliation? So the idea was that, you could have these people here at the same time. I've got a couple of other people that would be, that are professionals in their field that would volunteer their services for child custody evaluations. Not to do them, but the child custody evaluation is another scam that is often ordered. We have to have a child custody evaluation. And a lot of these child custody evaluators are not qualified. They have a certain thing that they do, and they charge a boatload of money. I've seen child custody evaluations charging $50,000, and I believe even more than that, $50,000, and the people that do that are not qualified to do that. So we've got a couple of people that would say, show me your child custody evaluation, and I can tell you where they're wrong, because they're professionally trained in this. Another guy that is an investment advisor to individuals, and he's willing to do some type of financial training. I have a garage here that I thought, we could turn this into a place that would be just a weight room, a place that guys that are going through this would be able to get up in the morning, they could work out, they could keep themselves in shape. Because when you're going through divorce, this is so awful, the stuff that you go through. You sometimes, your own body falls apart. What happens if you had a couple of guys, you say, hey, let's get up and work out, let's do something. Let's focus our energies in a positive direction, so that, number one, you keep your own sanity, and also too that you're not falling apart, that your whole own life is not falling apart completely. Anyway, like I said, we had this. I thought we were going to be able to do this. It turns out that at this point, just due to my own workload, I travel a lot. I've got a son with full-time nursing care. My wife is on long-term disability. I travel. I've been traveling about 50% of the time. I'm also busy with my own work, and I just didn't have a lot of time to devote to it. This other lady who was looking at doing it, she's extremely busy, and she's doing some really good stuff to try to help reform what's going on here in Texas. But I got to the place that I said, I don't know what to do at this point. So I'm looking at this point, putting this out there just in case anybody's interested. I do have this house, it's the man's house, that I'm either going to, if I got the proper help, I would continue to work this way. If not, I guess I'm going to have to put this off until another time. But my vision was, to some degree, is this, so you have one man's house. And when I started talking about this idea, other people said, we like the idea, we love it. You'd be filled all the time. But I cannot continue to devote a lot of additional time. I'm in my 60s right now, and often I'm worn out, and I just can't see doing another 10, 12 hours a week or more, coming down and somehow being the person that everybody leans on or whatever. And that's not my role. I'm not trained in that area. But I thought, I do have the house here still. It's a beautiful place. We thought about having it so that maybe kids could stay overnight. We chose against that because I think that there's some risks with that. There could be allegations made. There might be there would be some criteria that we would have to look at people that would come into it, because we don't want to have a bad reputation. It's the first time that we would be doing something like this. But my idea as well was, why don't we have homes like this throughout the state of Texas? Right now, there's nothing for men who are going through divorce. And you hear all of these attorneys, oh, we fight for men, we fight for women. They know what's going on. They know that men are victimized. Our legislators know that men are victimized as well. And there's really nothing in place for them. So the idea was to have people come in 3-6 months approximately, have a place to stay, get their feedback about themselves, not so that they're just desperate and flailing and having to deal with everything all at the same time, but having resources, having a law library, having people that would give legal counsel, perhaps even having some affiliations with attorneys that would provide this a la carte type of style that we're talking about at a reduced rate. Perhaps having some counselors here, perhaps even if some churches were interested, maybe having reconciliation ministries. So for example, I know some churches that are using Reengage. It's a program that basically they've taken people on the verge of divorce, papers are filed, everything else, and they've sat them down. They've gone through this course, and within, a certain amount of time, these people are back together, and some of these people have had wonderful marriages, and it's been because of a program like Reengage, two people that are committed and just have to work through things. The divorce attorneys don't tell you to work through things. They tell you have to get a divorce, and we've heard this in our legislature. Divorce attorneys, well, if they file for divorce against you, you file for divorce against them. That's not what we're talking about. We're saying that one person is unilaterally filing divorce, destroying the family, getting incentivized and rewarded for it. The other person is trying to say, I want to keep my family together. So could this be a model? I would like to see personally, a couple hundred of these types of places spring up throughout the entire state, so that if you're in Houston, you might have half a dozen of these houses. If you're in San Antonio, if you're in Amarillo, if you're in Lubbock, if you're in Dallas, it doesn't make a difference where you are, that you would have these houses throughout. Tyler, Texas is a big state. 200 houses is not a whole lot of houses like this, especially if you could have a place where 3 to 4 men at a time could get together. They could pool resources together. There's a place here, like I said, they've got individual bedrooms. They've got a bigger common area with a kitchen, with dining room, with living area, outdoor area with a pool and stuff like that. But at this point in time, I don't see it's going to happen. So I'm going to just put a quick appeal out there. If I can't, at this point, I've got about 2 weeks in order to make a decision whether to try something else or put it on the market. I just can't keep floating the house on my own. I've been able to thus far, but if anybody would be interested in helping out, what I'd like to do, if possible, is have some type of a buffer, because I know with people coming and going and stuff like that, I've got payments that I have to make on this house. And I've been doing it. I've been paying the utilities and everything else. I'm not interested in selling the house. I'm not interested in putting it in a nonprofit. This house to me is either going to be a source for retirement or for my grandkids, whether it's for private school or whether it's going to be for college. I want to be able to have something so that my grandkids would be able to have some type of additional monies when they're going to school. So I'm not interested in giving the house away, not interested in selling the house, not interested in putting it in a nonprofit, but I am interested to see if there's a way to do something. I've talked with a lot of people about this. I've had one person that actually volunteered some time, did some plumbing for me for free, just said, Jeff, you know what you're doing, appreciate it. He came down here, did some plumbing. I've had other people do some foundation work, inside work, and they gave me good rates. I've got some other stuff that I need to do still. But for myself, I thought, what do I need to do to at least give this a try? I would like this to be a long-term thing, but at the same time, too, I just cannot take another year of possibly being strung out financially over this. So it's an idea that I'm floating out there. If anybody would like to help out and see something like this take place, and maybe see other places like this go forward as well. What I'd be looking for is to have some type of a cushion here, financial cushion, so that I could weather the storms. I'm not trying to use the money, but just to say if for some reason it doesn't work, or you have a vacancy or something happens, that I have a little bit of a cushion that I could fall back on, make my payments in the interim. Everybody that I've talked to said, Jeff, you open this up, there will be people coming. Your problem will not be getting people in, your problem will be turning them away. I'm trying to get a fund of maybe up to $20,000 that would just act as a buffer. If you have a skill that you could contribute, that maybe it would be something that people that are going through this stuff could profit from. And it may be a legal professional, it may be another financial advisor, it may be a person who would say, hey, we'll do the child custody evaluation. We know in many instances men get shafted, get railroaded, get screwed out of seeing their kids. And it's not something that they asked for, not something that they deserved. There's a lot of other ideas that could be floating around. All I'm just saying is this is an idea that I've had. At this point, I still don't want to abandon the idea, but from a financial point of view, I don't know if I can continue on with it. So I wanted to see if there's anybody out there that might want to say, hey, you know what, we'll float this, help to float this for a year. We'll keep track. We'll have a CPA take care of the books so that there's no thought that I would be somehow like profiting off of the whole thing. Just want to have a safety net in here. You can always give more, but I've given a lot to the movement with my time, with my energy, with my expenses as well. So if this is something that you're interested in, I just want to throw it out there. I will provide more information. You can contact me on this YouTube channel in the comments below. I do not have everything legally set up yet, but I do have people that would help me with this as well. Again, so that everything is above board. We want to see if we can start a model that might not just happen here in Dallas, Texas, but throughout the state of Texas, and maybe even go to other states as well. We have to strengthen our families. The epidemic of fatherlessness is a huge, huge problem. When you have broken families or never formed families, you have a bunch of social maladies. You're paying for it. As taxpayers, you're paying for it. You're paying for the prison systems, you're paying for remedial education, you're paying for the crime, even rape that sometimes takes place because of kids coming from broken families. You want to stop abortions, we'll stop unwed pregnancies. What is one of the biggest reasons for unwed pregnancies? Coming from a broken family or a never formed family. So anyway, these are just some of my ideas. I'd be very glad to take any questions if you had it, but I want to throw it out there. This is kind of, in a sense, like a Hail Mary. So if anybody's interested, please let me know, and I'll give you some more information at that point. Anyway, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.